When I first moved to the old farmhouse in rural Indiana, I believed I was getting a fresh start. My divorce had left me emotionally gutted and financially tight, and the deal on this house seemed almost too good to be true. The property spanned 5 acres, wrapped in thick woods and silence. It was isolated enough to offer peace, but close enough to town in case I needed anything. The house itself was aged but not ruined. A Victorian build with slanted floors, dusty chandeliers, and wallpaper peeling like old scabs. I remember walking through the house and sensing something I couldn't quite place, like a chill in the summer air, a whisper that trailed just behind my ears. But I ignored it. I was desperate for change, and this house was supposed to be it. Yet, in the first week, I noticed a door on the second floor that was locked tight. When I asked the realtor, she said, "Just an old storage room. Best leave it be." At the time, I agreed, but that door would soon become the center of everything. There was something unsettling about that locked room. It wasn't just the door, it was how the air around it seemed thicker, colder. Every night, at precisely 2:13 a.m., I would wake up without reason. At first, I thought it was my internal clock readjusting, but I quickly realized it wasn't that. From the other side of that door, I began to hear soft noises. At first, it was the creaking of wood, like someone shifting their weight. Then came the whispering. Not in English, something deeper, wetter, almost guttural. I would stand there, frozen, ear pressed against the wood, and it would stop the moment I acknowledged it. I told myself it was rats or wind, even though the weather had been calm. I never dared to knock or try to open it. Something told me the door wasn't just locked by metal. It was locked by time, by history, by something that didn't want to be disturbed. It was on a rainy afternoon, 2 weeks into living there, that I found the key. I stepped on a loose floorboard near the front hallway, and curiosity got the better of me. I pried it up with a screwdriver and discovered a small tin box underneath. Inside the box was a rusted iron key and a folded note that had long since faded. The key was heavy, oddly warm, and had ornate carvings that didn't match any other doors in the house, except one. I didn't open the room that day. I kept the key in my jacket pocket, feeling its weight press against my ribs like a second heartbeat. That night, the whispering was louder, more agitated. Something knew I had the key. I barely slept. I told myself I would wait until morning to unlock the door, when the sun would make whatever was inside easier to face. I was wrong. The next morning, I stood in front of the door with the key trembling in my hand. I slid it into the lock. It resisted at first, like the mechanism hadn't been touched in decades. Then it gave way with a loud click that echoed through the hallway. As the door creaked open, the temperature in the hallway dropped by 10 degrees. The room beyond was empty. Wooden floors, faded wallpaper, and a single rocking chair facing the window. The air was stale, as though it had been sealed off for centuries. I stepped inside, half expecting to find a hidden staircase or some strange relic. But there was nothing, just the feeling that the room was watching me. I closed the door behind me and instantly regretted it. The door slammed shut and wouldn't open again for a full 10 minutes. I pounded, yelled, nearly cried. When it finally gave way, I fled and vowed never to enter again. But the house wasn't done with me. That night I woke to a pressure on my chest, like someone sitting on me. I gasped for air and struggled to move, only to find myself staring at the hallway. The door to the room, the one I had sworn to avoid, was open again. I got up slowly, against every instinct, and stepped out. At the end of the hallway, bathed in pale moonlight, the woman sat in the rocking chair. Her dress was white, but tattered, hanging off her like wet gauze. Her hair was black and matted, her hands clutching the armrest tightly. But her face, It wasn't a face. It was a void. Black, endless, absorbing the light around it. She turned slowly to face me, and I swear, even without eyes, I knew she saw me. My knees buckled. I crawled backward into my room and slammed the door. When I awoke, it was morning, and the hallway was empty. I woke up in the driver's seat. The fog was gone. It was morning, but the trailer felt heavier. I checked the back. Instead of carnival equipment, there were now dozens of large crates, each one labeled with names and dates. Some were fresh, some decades old. I opened one. Inside was a mannequin. No, a person. Preserved, eyes open, as if caught mid-scream. My name was on the last crate. I slammed it shut and jumped in the cab. Tried to radio for help. Nothing. Just static, and faint laughter in the background. The GPS now read, Eternity 0.0 miles. Every town I passed looked like a painted set. People didn't blink. Some waved, others stared blankly. I tried exiting the highway. The roads looped. I drove for hours but ended up in the same spot. I tried to sleep. Couldn't. My reflection in the side mirror blinked when I didn't. It grinned wider every hour. Sometimes I see other trucks, flickering like mirages. And sometimes I swear I see their drivers banging on the windows, trying to warn me. They're all part of it now. I don't know how long I've been driving. The sun never sets here. The road never ends. Every night the trailer hums with that cursed tune. Every morning I check the crates. There's always one more. I'm not the driver anymore. I'm the cargo. My hands don't obey me. My thoughts echo someone else's laughter. And the mirror? It's not a reflection anymore. It's a window. And someone, or something, is looking back. If you're reading this, don't take any jobs hauling carnival gear. Some roads were never meant to be traveled. I've been hauling freight across the South for nearly 2 decades. Seen all kinds of roads, people, and cargo. But I'll never forget the night I took the job from that small-town dispatcher in rural Alabama. It was a last-minute call, an old logger town called Gray Hollow. They had a refrigerated trailer packed and ready, but no one would take it. Pays double, the dispatcher mumbled. Just get it to Baton Rouge by morning. I should have known something was off when the guy wouldn't look me in the eye. The load papers were blank under contents. I figured maybe it was meat or some backdoor deal. I was broke and desperate. I didn't ask questions. When I arrived at the yard, it was eerily quiet. The trailer was hooked up to a small industrial unit that looked like it hadn't seen maintenance in a decade. The lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows across the lot. A group of workers in orange vests stood huddled near the building watching me. Not one of them said a word. They just stared. One even crossed himself as I pulled out of the lot. I brushed it off. Figured they were just superstitious about something. Or maybe they knew something I didn't. But the tension in my gut wouldn't let go. As I hit the highway and the town disappeared behind me, I realized this wasn't going to be a normal haul. The route took me deep into forested back roads. Pine trees crowded the road like silent sentinels, their spindly limbs arching overhead. Fog slithered between their trunks, too thick for a summer night. The further I drove, the more I felt it. That pressure in the air, like the woods were watching. It didn't help that the moon barely pierced the tree canopy. My headlights seemed swallowed whole by the darkness, and my CB had gone silent. No trucker chatter, no static, just dead air. Even the GPS glitched, resetting to a blank screen before rebooting with a route that didn't match the paper map. My instincts told me to turn back, but my wallet told me to keep going. A double pay job wasn't easy to come by, especially for an independent guy like me. I cranked the volume on the radio and tried to drown out the gnawing unease, but every mile felt longer than the last. That's when I noticed something odd about the trees. They were bending inward slightly, like they were leaning in to listen. Branches arched low enough to scrape the top of my trailer, creating a rhythmic tapping sound that set my teeth on edge. I kept one hand on the wheel and the other near the door. My nerves pulled taut like piano wire. A few miles past midnight, I started hearing whispers. Faint, like wind cutting through the trees, except it wasn't outside. It came from the sleeper cab. At first I thought it was the CB radio acting up, but it was off. Then I thought I was just tired. I rubbed my eyes, popped another caffeine pill, and told myself to focus. But then I heard my name. Rick! Rick! Clear as day. A child's voice, laughing. I turned off the radio completely, pulled over and checked the cab. Empty. Nothing under the seats. Nothing in the back. I even checked the glove box. Back on the road, the whispers started again, more insistent this time. No music or engine noise could drown them out. It was like they were in my head. And they weren't saying nice things. They said, "You shouldn't be here." And then they began to chant. My name, over and over again. I covered my ears, but it didn't help. The whispers came from within. The wheel trembled in my hands. My breath turned shallow, and my heart pounded like it wanted out of my chest. Just past mile marker, 241, I slammed the brakes. There was someone standing at the edge of the road, a man in dirty overalls and a wide-brimmed hat. He didn't move, just stood there, waving slowly. His eyes reflected amber in the dark. As I crept past, he raised a finger to his lips and whispered, "Shh." Then he vanished. I looked in my mirrors, even stepped out of the cab with my flashlight. Nothing, no footprints, no sign anyone had been there. I told myself it was a trick of the fog, or headlights playing games on tired eyes. But deep down, I knew better. The road ahead twisted and narrowed. I kept going, but I rolled up the windows and locked the doors. I tried calling someone, anyone, no signal. Just the empty silence of an old forest with secrets. My hands were shaking. I kept one eye on the road and the other on the mirrors, half expecting to see him again. Near Blackwater Creek, the refrigerated unit in the trailer began to scream. Not whine, scream. Metal grinding against metal, like something alive was trapped inside. I pulled over, stepped out with a flashlight, and unlocked the rear doors. Cold fog poured out. Ice clung to the inside walls, even though the temp wasn't set that low. And there, etched into the frost on the wall, were claw marks. 5 long scratches, fresh. I scanned the inside, empty. No boxes, no meat. Just that frigid air and a lingering stench I couldn't place, like old leaves and wet fur. I slammed the doors shut and locked them. Back in the cab, the whispers returned, louder. This time they weren't just whispering. They were mimicking my voice, my thoughts. I should have said no, they echoed, repeating my guilt. My skin prickled. I floored it. It was just after 2 a.m. when I saw her. In the rearview mirror, a girl, maybe 10 years old, pale skin, wet hair clinging to her face, white dress soaked to her knees. She sat in the sleeper, smiling at me. I froze, looked back. Gone. I jumped out, flung the door open, and searched every inch of the cab. Nothing. I even checked under the mattress. Empty. When I turned the truck back on, the dashboard lights flickered. For a second, they spelled out letters, H-E-L-P. Then they reset. I started driving again, gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping me anchored to reality. But she returned. Every few minutes, I'd catch a glimpse of her in the mirror. Closer each time. Her smile wider, her eyes darker. The GPS rerouted me down an unpaved service road cutting straight through the forest. I hesitated. The main route was blocked by a fallen tree, so I followed the detour. Trees loomed closer. The road turned to gravel, then to dirt. My wheels kicked up dust, and the shadows seemed to press in. That's when I saw the signs. Wooden stakes hammered into the ground every 100 feet. Each one read the same thing. Don't let them speak. The whispers grew into voices, arguing, crying, begging. I turned off the radio, but the noise was still there. It was like I had tuned into the frequency of the dead. The stakes passed by faster, each one cracked and aged, yet freshly marked. I started praying. I hadn't done that in years. At 3:37 a.m., everything stopped. No whispers, no music, just silence, thick and unnatural. Even the crickets had gone quiet. Then came the knock, 3 soft taps on the passenger window. I turned. The girl was back, closer this time, face to glass. Her eyes were completely black. She mouthed something. I couldn't hear her. But in the mirror above, I saw something else move behind me. Not her. Something big. Something that didn't belong in any forest. I turned slowly, heart thundering. Nothing. But the seatbelt across my chest tightened by itself, and the air in the cab dropped to freezing. My breath fogged the windshield. Something was in there with me. I floored it. The road twisted like it didn't want me to leave. Shadows moved in the trees. The trailer rocked like something inside was trying to break out. My heart thundered. Then fire. A wall of flames erupted across the road, but the truck didn't stop. It moved like something else was driving. I wasn't in control. The whispers turned into screams. I could feel something crawl across my spine, like cold fingers brushing my skin. My eyes watered. My ears rang. Shapes ran alongside the truck. Some on all fours, some not human at all. We roared through the flames, and for a second, everything turned white. When I pulled into the drop point at dawn, my hands were stiff, my knuckles white. The trailer doors were covered in frost again. A man in a suit met me. No name, no badge, just a clipboard. "You made it," he said. "On time. Most don't." I asked what was in the trailer. He smiled. Silence. They took the trailer and paid in cash. I left that place and never took another back road job again. But sometimes when I'm alone in the cab at night, the radio crackles, and I hear her whisper my name. Rick.